This conference will now be recorded.
Regional Transportation Advisory Group meeting to order. And our first item on the agenda is the opportunity for public comment. Public comment online?
We have 6 individuals online, but no public comments.
Okay, so no public comment. We will move to the next item on the agenda, action item regarding the approval of minutes from February 15th, 2024 meeting. Call to approve the minutes from the February meeting. Motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving right along to the next agenda item, the discussion and action item regarding approval of Felicia Holland as a new CTRTAG member representing the public transportation user stakeholder group.
Felicia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, Felicia Holland, I work for the Fourth Area Habitat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry, y'all. Call to vote to approve Felicia as a new member. First motion.
I move to approve. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, all right. Well, welcome, Felicia. Thank you, yeah. Okay, next agenda item is a discussion item regarding presentation from Moveability Transportation Management Association.
Right, and we have Lonnie Stern, who's the Executive Director of Moveability, and he's online. So I think we'll have to move the slides ourselves whenever he tells us. But Lonnie, you can go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Well, thank you. That explains that. I was wondering how I'd be able to share slides today, but thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your meeting today. I'm sorry I can't be with you this morning. I have another presentation that's right after this one. So thank you for being part of this. And also thank you for considering how transportation demand management can be part of the solution for you and your organization just up the road. Again, my name is Lonnie Stern. I am the Executive Director of Moveability. And if you can move to the next slide, I can tell you a little bit more about us. Today we're going to talk about what is movability, then a little bit more about what is transportation demand management and why we focus on that. And then the programs that we're doing in the Austin area, some of which may be useful to you, but we'll talk a little bit about why we're doing those programs in this area and how they got started. And then we'll move on to some emerging priorities for us, and then kind of close with some of the motivational questions that got us to that place. So next slide. Great. So Moveability is the Transportation Management Association for Central Texas. And we work with individuals and organizations to build the region around people, not cars. And for us, that means we encourage affordable mobility solutions. And the reason why is because we're trying to reduce congestion. We're trying to make sure that we can protect the air quality in our region and sustain the economic vitality of our region, while also making sure that people are safe on the road. And in order to do that, we focus on transportation demand management, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a second. And we focus on programming and education for our members and the public to help make sure that they're making decisions that lead to better using our mobility infrastructure. And then we also do data and research to find out why they're making these decisions, because we're all making rational decisions about how to move around the region. And some of those decisions have been made for us based on the built environment. Next slide, please. So when we think about transportation demand management, some of that are strategies. And a lot of times we think of physical infrastructure or things that people need to do. But some of it is really understanding why people are making these decisions. And some of it is working with major employers, because if your employer is providing you with a giant sea of free parking, you don't really have an incentive to think about getting there with somebody else or using another mode. In addition, if you don't have other options than driving alone, you're going to drive alone. And so you, in the end, are going to wind up using whatever is the path of least resistance. Next slide, please. And so when we consider transportation management, next slide, we have to start with why. Why are we talking about this? So in the Austin region, we know we're one of the most congested cities in the region, and we're adding 70 more cars to the road every day. So if you didn't like the traffic this morning, you're not going to like it tomorrow any better. In fact, it gets worse every single day. Next slide, please. And in fact, our region, as we know, is doubling in size. But we're not doubling the number of roads. And so what we have is a geometry problem. We need to move twice the number of people in not twice the amount of space. Next slide, please. And so you may have seen some version of this graphic, but this is showing what 70 people look like on the road. So I've got 70 people next to a bus. There are, in the middle photo, are 70 people next to 70 people on bikes. And then in that third photo, you'll see 70 people, but if you do the counting, you're going to notice that's only about 40 cars. And I point this out because you'd actually need twice as much space to put 70 cars on that slide. And the reason I show 70 cars is because most people, when they're going to work or to school, are driving alone. And that's the trouble right there, is that even if you don't have another option like transit or biking, you do have the option of sharing the ride. And so we could be encouraging people to carpool or vanpool. And even if they did that just once or twice a week, it would have a significant impact on how much space they're taking up. And a lot of times people like to think, oh, I'm stuck in traffic. Well, you're not stuck in traffic. You are traffic. So if you can take yourself out once or twice a week, it'll have a huge impact on the experience for everybody involved, including yourself. Next slide, please. So, there are other reasons for this that actually impact your constituents. First, there's the pocketbook. The average commute in our area is 16 miles. And I can't say that I've done the research in your specific community, but you could certainly go onto NRICS and take a look at that data as well. But 16 miles is the average commute to work and then back. So if you're using the federal reimbursement rate, you can see how that quickly adds up. If somebody were to leave their car home twice a week, that's about $2,000 a year in savings. And if you want to just do a quick calculation, you could just think 50 cents a mile is the actual cost, even though it's 67 cents a mile. So just think that that trip is costing $8 each way. So you're telling somebody, pay me $16 a day to go to work. That's what you're saying. And so when people move further and further away from their jobs, they're having to pay more and more to go to work. Next slide. In addition, as regions grow, parking becomes more expensive. And this isn't just for the person parking, it's for employers. So if an employer is in a downtown region, they have to pay for parking leases, which is a hidden cost of doing business. And it goes up and up and up. This slide's out of date. It's now more than $300 a month for a downtown parking spot. But also, your buildings include parking spots, or your buildings include large parking lots. And those spots cost between $15,000 and $60,000 to build. So you're increasing the cost of building on top of it. So these are places where people could live. This is places where people could shop or work. Instead, we're building housing for cars that are mostly going empty. Next slide, please. In addition, we're wasting a lot of time stuck in traffic. And just to be clear, this 53 hours of lost time is not the total amount of time in traffic. This is just the delta between if it took you 15 minutes to go somewhere during non-peak, and then during rush hour, it takes you more time, it takes you 30 minutes. It's just counting that difference. And so this is how much time we're wasting in traffic because of peak demand. And it just keeps going up and up and up. Next slide, please. And then each of us is putting about 14 tons of carbon in the air each year from transportation. And the commute to work or school is just a piece of that. So if you go to the next slide, you can see that if someone were to reduce their commute twice a week, that if you click to the next slide, you can see it reduces their commute by 10%. And then if you click again, it reduces it by 25%. And so again, that's just the work commute is 25%. If somebody wants to give up their car altogether, it would be all of it. But again, we're just trying to make incremental progress so that way we can continue to grow as a region. Now on this next slide, the one that's on screen, I'm showing the Austin Strategic Mobility Plan. Now, I'm not saying that their plan is the greatest plan ever. I just want to point out that in order to tackle a problem, you have to start with a plan. And the ASMP starts with a goal that we're going to double in size, and we want to go from 3 out of 4 people driving alone to 50-50 by 2039. So it's a 20-year goal trying to say, as we absorb more people, can we make it so that way only half of them are driving alone? And the other half are doing something like telework, transit, carpool, vanpool, or some other mode like biking or walking. And that might look different for your community. But again, if you don't have a plan, then you can't really track your progress and you can't really decide how to prioritize how you're spending funds. Otherwise, you'll just keep doing the same thing that you've been doing. Next slide, please. So I've included this slide just to bring into the conversation that dedicated right-of-way moves more people if you're considering transit than having transit in a mixed right-of-way. So if you've got buses that are in traffic, just intuitively, if the bus is stuck in traffic, people are less likely to want to use it because they think, I can be stuck in traffic in my car. So why am I going to be stuck in traffic in the bus? So it's less of an inducement for people to use it. But also, you can run more service in a dedicated lane and know that it's more reliable. You can run more frequent service in a dedicated lane than you can in one that's in mixed traffic. But I would caution you, I wouldn't just start running 30-minute service in a dedicated lane because people won't respect that lane. They'll start going into the car lane because it's empty all the time. It's only on routes where you've got 10 or 15-minute service, or maybe you have 2 or 3 or 4 buses running at the same time in the same place, where you have so much frequent service that cars already intuitively know, oh, don't use the right lane because you're going to get stuck behind a bus. That's a great place to drop some bus-only lanes, whether you paint it, put sticks down, or even just signage. To help increase the performance of that service and attract more choice riders to that service. So in the next slide, we're going to move over to some of the things we're doing as a TMA for the Austin region. And you can see there's lots of programs, so I'm going to give just a short amount of time to each one of these. But we want to keep in mind what can companies do to reduce the cost of parking, and what are companies and organizations doing to attract and retain employees and then reduce drive-alone commuting in the region. So first, on the next slide, we do research. What we're probably best known for is doing the annual commuter survey, and we'll be releasing the 2023 results very shortly. But we also work with any organization when we first start by doing cluster analysis with their employees, seeing where they're coming from, what modes they're interested in using or not, and why. And that way we can give good advice about what infrastructure may or may not be needed or what programs may or may not be needed. Next slide, please. Then we offer professional services, and that can range from things like developing a custom TDM plan. We host surveys, we host focus groups, we'll do lunch and learns for the organizational staff. We'll even do outreach and engagement. And as you'll see later, we'll take people out and have them try out the new services so that way the first time they're doing it isn't a scary experience. Next slide. Then we piggyback on My Commute Solutions, which Campo offers in our area. And this is a platform that allows people to plan their trips and to track their active and shared commutes. Now, what we do is we offer prizes and incentives through this platform every month for anybody who's tracking their trips. And if you do that, we also offer a guaranteed ride home thanks to a partnership with Uber Transit up to 7 times a year and up to $75 per incident on any mode. You don't have to just use Uber. Anything that you do to get home in case you get sick or your kid gets sick, you need to go home in the middle of the day, but you use the van pool or something, for example. But on top of that, we now have a partnership with Carbon Cred. And if you move to the next slide, this makes it so that way you don't have to manually track your trips anymore. You download the app, you put in your home address and your work address, you enter your car make and model, and then after that, it tracks your trips. So if you do an active or shared commute, like biking, busing, or carpooling, it will know automatically and it will give you cash for those trips because it sells your carbon offset on the international carbon offset market. And so we have slowly been launching this. And this September, when the weather cools a bit, we'll be doing a much bigger push for this in our region. Next slide. We also offer mobility camps. And the reason why is if you've never ridden the bus or a scooter or a bike before or bike share, it's scary. And the trip to work is a stressful trip. You want to be there on time and you don't know the schedule. You got a whole new plan for your morning. And so we want to change that paradigm for people. So we work with organizations like offices, seniors, college freshmen, even neighborhood groups, churches, schools, and we'll make it a team builder, something fun. And we'll go on scavenger hunts, go to parks, happy hour hops, anything to make it a fun experience. And we'll take them off site and we'll make it something memorable so that they walk away with this positive experience. And they don't think about, oh, I used the bus or I used the train or I went on a bike ride. They think I had a good time with friends and coworkers. And that way they're much more likely to use it on their own now that they know how to do it. But it changes the culture because in our region, if you're in a transit poor community, you think of transit as like, I don't have a car or my car is broken. Versus if you're in a transit rich community, you think, oh, I'm going to visit my family. I'm going to go to a museum. Yeah, I'm going to the park today. And so you got to break down that cultural concern with using a new mode. And so we basically lifted the best parts of experiential learning from school and we brought it to this space. And we find that people are much more likely to use it once they've had their handheld and they've done it with a group of friends. Next slide, please. This year, we are piloting School Pool in Central Texas. And this is because school pickup and drop off lines are now becoming major congestion headaches, and they're also contributing to the air quality issue. So we've partnered with a group called Go Together, which provides a mobile app and web interface that is more customized for parent needs. It does a background check. It shows you where the car is at all times, and it allows you to customize for the age of the student and also after school activities and multiple schedules. So you can more easily make appropriate matches for carpooling, bike pooling, or walk pooling. And we're paying the schools to participate in this program. We have 7 schools participating this year, and we're hoping to scale this effort over the next few years. You can go to our website to learn more about that. Next slide. We also help small businesses and large businesses as a fee for service through our Move Pass program, which handles the administration of a bulk transit discount program. Some companies have an HR department that could handle it. Others, they just don't have staff for that. And so if you want to increase transit use, providing a discount is a good way to do that. And we can remove the barrier and do the tracking and let people know when to top off their program again and then encourage people to enroll. So we handle that for them, thanks to support from Google and Bank of America and Cat Metro. Next slide. And then we have our Go Grant program. Now, this is limited to the city of Austin because the city of Austin is our major supporter. But if you want to encourage small businesses and nonprofits in your area to encourage active and shared commuting so that it's not just a government program, we pass through grants so that they can come up with infrastructure like a bike rack or showers or lockers, things of that nature, or programs like transit pass programs or launching a new van pool program, or just mobility planning projects like, I don't know where to start. What does a TDM program look like? And so they apply for grants. We do 2 cycles a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. We have a Go Grant cycle open now through September 4th. And through that, we usually wind up awarding about 20 organizations a year through this program, and they become members, and then they wind up continuing this TDM outreach work. It's how to build the tent really big. So it's another way to engage your community through the private sector. And then next slide. Those that work with us deserve to be recognized. And so if you're a member of the TMA, we'll do this for free and get we'll do the filing for you and recognize you at a ceremony as the best workplace for commuters, because we know the private sector, they love their trophy case. And so we want to add to it. Next slide, please. We also try to encourage thought leadership in the space. So we host quarterly gatherings with a fast pitch series for our business, community, and government leaders to talk about this issue, mobility issues they're facing, solutions that they can offer, and vendors who maybe have a product that they want to advertise. And we usually get between 20 and 50 people to participate in these each month. It's a great way to keep the conversation going. Next slide, please. And we, of course, have larger regional thought leadership events, including our breakfast each February, where we have keynote speakers, and then the summit, which is a panel-based discussion. We've got one coming up in September. We'll have one about tolling authorities and one panel about microtransit happening on September 19th. And so to kind of close on this discussion, the next slide, you might consider some motivational questions like, can your organization reduce the cost of parking? How are people commuting in the region? What are employers doing to encourage their workers to shift? Are there ways to make it easier for employers or for individuals to do at least one active or shared commute, even if they can't bike or use transit somewhere? How can we leverage experiential learning? How can we reward the good behavior of individuals or employers? Or are there non-work trips that we can focus on that'll get people familiar with it and they'll bring it into the work week? And then how can we cultivate thought leadership in our region beyond just individuals? And so on our last slide, it's really just contact info for our small but mighty team. You don't need to have a whole government division to make this work, but certainly it does require the support of several agencies. And thanks to the leadership of the City of Austin, the Downtown Austin Alliance, Cat Metro, and then our 100-member organizations, we're able to do this work. And we've been focusing, we do serve Central Texas, but we've been focusing on Williamson, Travis, and Hayes County at this point. And we work with Campo and CapCog to extend that work further. So with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I'm certainly happy to be a resource even outside of this forum.
Thank you.
Sure. I had a question just about how the TMA got started and maybe what partners came together and entities to form it.
So the TMA started because of the increasing cost of parking in downtown Austin. And employers were really chafing about it. And they went to the Downtown Austin Alliance, and they went to the City of Austin, Cat Metro, and Travis County and formed together an alliance. And so at the time, it was very focused on downtown Austin and those employers. And those founders all contributed money each year, and they still do, to the tune of $60,000 a year. And they were the bedrock that began the organization in 2011. It wasn't until about 2017 that the focus really turned to the larger region rather than it just being a downtown Austin TMA.
And have you seen a change since you started in public transit use, like an increase, or if any of your programs, you talked about the program where you take people out to different activities and stuff with public transit, more people using it regularly?
Well, so I've hosted a program like Mobility Camps previously, since as early as 2016. And I did that work partly when I was at Cat Metro and also partly with Moveability. And I should tell you, I was a board member of Moveability for 5 years before becoming the executive director in 2023. And we did see an increase in transit use that ranged from 2 to 7% for people who participated in mobility camps. We saw an overall increase in active and shared commuting as well that ranged from 1 to 3%. And so that meant carpooling and biking as well. And we currently survey anybody who interacts with us on any of our programming, even if they just come to the breakfast, because we think that it's worthwhile to see what influence just our messaging has on their behavior.
Any other questions from anyone online?
We have one.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for that presentation, sir. I'm curious about the school pool. Does that, is that available for outside of the City of Austin limits, or is that only for City of Austin limits?
It is available outside the City of Austin limits. We did an open call for schools in the region, and we just took schools that were interested. We didn't want to try to strong arm anybody to participate. So if you've got schools that are interested, we'd be happy to talk to them for the 25-26 school year.
And one more question, sir. Regarding the GO grants and the bike racks, is that for the City of Austin area only, or is that outside of that as well?
Yeah, so for Go Grant, it is just for the City of Austin because they're our primary funder for now. As we grow the pool for that, we may be able to grow the area. But I wanted to bring it up because it is a good way for your area to seed a fund for a project like that. And I want to be clear, we fund way more than bike racks. I was just giving it as an example of the kind of infrastructure projects that people ask for.
And one final question regarding the program where you can earn cash when you do different alternatives for going to work. Can people earn cash if their place of employment allows them to work remotely?
So unfortunately, for carbon cred, you cannot track a trip where you stay at home. And so telework does not count towards that reward. And the reason why is you need a verifiable carbon offset to sell it in the international carbon offset market. And you can't prove that you would have driven to work, but you chose to stay home. But I can prove that you rode your bike to work because I can see that it was a bike trip. And so, no, you can't get cash for the telework behavior, even though we could see it. So that is a weakness of that particular platform. But we can, it eliminates the lack of reporting that people have to do currently, where they have to open the app and tell you every time they commute. Now you never have to do that. Your phone is tracking all of your trips. So we can give you cash for your work commute, and then we can enter you into drawings every month and even on every Ozone Action Day for any of your active and shared commutes, even if it's just a bike ride to the coffee shop. You'd be entered to win.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you so so much.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. And again, our information's on screen. I hope we have many more chances to work together down the road.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 6 regarding coordination and implementation of the fiscal year 22-26 regionally coordinated transportation plan.
All right, so we'll start off kind of on the COG side of things. Because we didn't have quorum in May, we were going to talk about our last transportation stakeholder survey, which was sent out to stakeholders, largely attendees of the last summit. So it was for December of 23 through February of 24. And you can actually see the full results in your staff update at the end. That's a breakdown of all the responses. But basically, we asked them, are there any new transportation needs you've identified, any new partners you're working with, any new projects, and then transportation-related meetings. Then lastly, for this one, we asked if they had any suggestions or input for a future transportation summit, the one we'll talk about after this. So as far as needs, there was stuff like lack of medical and employment transportation services for disabled people and clean and tenable transportation partners. This was the COG with HOP and Area Agency on Aging, TBC grant we applied for. And then for, as far as suggestions for the summit itself, people suggested discussing accessible transportation for rural areas not covered by microtransit, which is what we're focusing on. Progress on microtransit, the TBC grant funded bus pass program, and another one suggested the city officials panel. Next, we are going to talk about that veteran bus pass program. So, George, if you want to kind of give a, I guess, overview or update kind of on where we're at with that program. And we also have the intake form in your packet as well, that kind of shows how we're taking it.
Sure. Thank you so much. We've had a little bit of a delay in part because of getting the microtransit operational and getting that to work, because the crux of it to make it work would be the tracking of the funding through the app itself. So we are about to launch for September 3rd. That is correct. Okay. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. So what we've done in the meantime, we're working with Pressing Design and updating our web page so that we could do the application itself. So what the COG and AAA is going to be doing is we have to vet the veteran to make sure that they have honorable discharge or general discharge, and then verify the residency for the state of Texas. So we're having to do those documentations. Once that's done and completed, then at that point, we are going to submit the names to HOP to create our own little fund pool for them so that they're registered for that. So we've had a couple of events already. We're working with close to 40 individuals that have wanted to participate, so we're getting those documentations. I have sent out to all my VA contacts, to the Homeless Coalition, to MASH and different components, to start launching that, because the VA system itself has all these documents and stuff, so they're probably going to be faster at getting me the documents that I need so that I can launch. So as soon as we get that, then we'll have a weekly or even more frequently to upload to the system. And then once it's in, we're basically, they have transportation for the year for $300. Space is what we're challenged right now, is that I am still looking for vendors to help us in the rural components. Because remember, I do 7 counties. And then we'll also have a rural component to Bell, which is an issue because right now it's free, am I correct?
Right
now. And that's going to change in January. So some of those things we didn't anticipate, as far as that. So I've got working with 3 different vendors I'm trying to launch. There's all different pricing. There's going to be some issues. How am I going to identify whether that veteran's in that microtransit? So we're working those logistics out. So But I think for the most part, with all the connections we have, we should be able to get our metrics for the veterans. It's just spending the money is going to be interesting because we thought we were going to be spending more money, but the subsidized ride in itself is allowing us to serve way more veterans than we had originally anticipated. Because we were thinking of a cost reimbursement of 45 per ride one way, and then limiting it up to like $3,000 per veteran per year. Right now, for $300, we're going to be supporting a veteran for unlimited rides anywhere they want, which is it's a big game changer for us. So other than that, we probably will, once we start enrolling, we'll start seeing the issues of the microtransit inside the bell, outside the bell issues pop up. We just, I was having a discussion with Melissa, we've already encountered some of those problems of that issue, but, you know, we'll see how with the two other vendors to resolve that, but it's a big step for us. I will be also doing this for my senior population on a different pot of money, but my seniors can only go for medical, so I've got to be able to track the medical side of their visits in order to allow for that. So I have to verify, you know, my trips to be medically related. Any questions for me at this point?
Is it going to start off only in urban areas? Because I know we had the whole issue with the rural fairs. Is that going to be later? And right now it's just Temple Green.
Well,
right?
as soon, I've got 3 vendor contracts I'm working on. As soon as I get those operationalized, then we will be able to address that. But right now, if it's a rural component, we will refer it to the HOP for them to see if they have the availability for that ride. And then at that point, as I launch my vendors, which I should have within the next 2 weeks, start that, I'll be able to move forward with providing rides that HOP is not able to provide right now.
Okay. And we'll move on to the HOP portion. We have Derek here, and there are the bullet points there, the few items we're going to go over.
Sure. Okay, so starting off with, well, as you can imagine, the last 6 months or so, we've been, the HOP staff extremely busy with all these different projects, and we're kind of nearing the execution of the microtransit. Starting off with Fort Cavazos, so I don't know if you don't know, we partnered with Fort Cavazos Filter Installation and launched first of its kind microtransit system on Fort Cavazos back in February, a soft launch. We deployed 4 buses the month of February to just kind of test the waters. And then we implemented a full microtransit system in March 2nd. When we asked the military, the Fort Cavazos staff, what the success would look like to you, because we didn't know. What do you envision? Instinct. They were hoping to deliver for us to deliver about 30,000 passenger trips the first year. As of yesterday, we just crossed 117,000 in less than 6 months. So that just gives you the magnitude of what microtransit for it's been a game changer. I review ridership satisfaction comments and key performance indicators, and we are at the point where we're almost exceeding our own expectations. With 12 buses running during peak and 10 buses running off peak and then 8 buses running on weekends and holidays, we are still able to deliver well over 99% on performance in all cases and keep the wait time to about 10 to 12 minutes on average. So that's how effective and efficient microtransit system is. We've also secured funding for Cavazos Connector for the second year, just 25. So we're going to continue doing our business on Cavazos. Same capacity. And I anticipate the ridership going up because of the regional microtransit launch connectivity for Cavazos will have in the rest of the system. Public hearings and travel trainings, again, we've been busy, as I mentioned, as of, I think, yesterday, we've done well over 30 or even 40 public hearings at different agencies, schools, cities, and then also we deployed what we call an ambassador program. So we had selected staff writing on the different routes, educating the public about microtransit, pros and cons, and what it is and how it functions for the last 3 months. That's been very effective. We've done public hearings earlier in the summer with each city, educating the public about microtransit, the changes, upcoming changes. So that's been, again, received very, very well with each city. As far as urban microtransit, as I mentioned, we're launching in September 3rd. We will operate in the 5 cities of Belton County, so Harper Heights, Killeen, Temple, Belton, and Copper Cove, 14 hours a day, Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And in addition to the microtransit in each city, we will also deploy regional commuter buses that go the 5 cities along the highway, running at approximately 30-minute headways. So 6 buses simultaneously up and down the highway. That's all I really have at this point. Any questions, comments, concerns?
The microtransit zones are covering the whole city limits, right?
Yeah, so not a whole city limits, but majority, depending on the city. So, for instance, Copper Cove, Copper Cove will have 2 zones, but most of the city is covered with Copper Cove. Killeen will have 4 different zones. Again, majority of the city is covered. Those zones are porous, so the zones are just really for us or for the software to understand what type of fleet and how many buses we need each zone at any given time. But the buses can cross zones freely, back and forth, up and down within the city. And so Copper Cove will have 3 buses. Killeen will have 15 buses dedicated to the Killeen microtransit. Hartford Heights will have 3, and then Belton will have 3 and Temple. And so, in order to get from city to city, you'll have to get on the commuter bus, with the exception of if their microtransit zones are adjacent. So, for instance, Hartford Heights and East Killeen, those zones are adjacent, so those buses can cross back and forth. But in an instance, Cove to Killeen or Belton to Temple, a rider will have to get on a regional commuter, and then from there they take microtransit to go within the city.
For the connector route, are we expecting 30-minute wait times? Are they going to do 2 buses going in opposite directions?
So 3 buses simultaneously the opposite direction. So between 30 and 40 minute headways, depending on the time.
What's the headway for that?
There's really it's wait time, so it's going to be based on peak or off peak and the city, because each city has different buses allocated. We anticipate probably 20 to 30 minutes peak and 30 to 40 minutes off peak. So that's an average. But again, going back to 4 Cavazos, that was our anticipation for Cavazos. We ended up about 10 to 15 minute wait times.
Great.
Usual indication of what you could
So their trip cost is $2?
Trip cost is $2 base fare within a UZA. So we have 2 UZAs, large UZA being Killeen, Harper Heights, and Cove, and then small UZA, Temple, Belton. As long as you're doing trips within those UZAs, it's $2 base fare, $1 discounted. So seniors, students, veterans, military will receive $1 discount, a 50% discount. Now, if you travel across UZA, Temple, Killeen, Temple, that's $4. But you are going to be capped at $4 a day as long as you utilize the app. If you cash pay, that way we have no way to track. That makes sense.
That's also the reason we have the tokens no longer being in use after all.
No, we're going to still continue receiving tokens. We're just going to continue using them until we expand the city. Okay. Just eliminate. But yeah, at this point, we still have a lot of token circulation.
And then I have a question too. So as of September 3rd, does the special transit, is that?
So that all goes away. So it's all commingled.
It's all.
So it's microtransit. So your riders currently, we have fixed route system, and then we have special transit service, which comprises of non-emergency medical transportation and ADA paratransit. So those passengers will be commingled with the rest of the public.
Okay. So I have a situation, maybe we can talk later. If a rider right now that uses special transit is outside of the zone, but she receives a ride from work back home, as of September 3rd, if her house is not in that zone for the microtransit,
Right.
is there an alternative?
No, she would have to she would have to be in a zone to be picked up. Again, it's we have to draw boundaries somewhere based on fleet, size and our expected wait times. The bigger the zones are, the longer the wait times, the worse experience with the riders. We want people to use the system. And so we just have to, build a foundation and then go from there. And we can always adjust along the way. We see we're exceeding our own expectations, then we may, increase those boundaries. Just don't know. We do have 2 additional what we call satellite zones in Killeen, Texas A&M and the Killeen Airport. And those will be served by Uber Transit. So we have entered into partnership with Uber, and they will provide transportation with us. The way that this is going to be deployed is if a wait time exceeds, so let's say you schedule a ride and we don't have availability for another hour, then the software will launch an Uber to come pick you up. And all you're gonna pay the same amount of money as you would for the hop, and then Uber will invoice us, just paying whatever the difference is.
Does Uber also, as we discussed in the past, during supplement after hours, so whenever the hop's not up?
Yeah, so we're not launching after hours, it's just gonna be supplemented during our service hours once the acceptable wait times exceed. And those trips will be limited to 4 miles within the zones for Uber, with the exception of the 2 satellite zones, the airport and so those will be right now served only by Uber through our app. It's just based on expected ridership. We don't think that we'll get that much ridership, but if we see that that's not the case, we potentially may cover those.
How many vans are in the fleet currently?
So we currently have a total of 36 dedicated fleet for the region, and then we have 10 additional spare vans for the microtransit. And we have 6 dedicated plus 2 spares for the regional.
And what is for all your vans, how many can do wheelchair?
Great question. So we have about 40% of our microtransit fleet is ADA, or wheelchair accessible. So each city will have dedicated ADA accessible at any given time. Yes.
We have a question online.
Yes.
How many microtransit vehicles did you say you had?
Total?
Yes.
So 36 dedicated for daily operations for the region.
I have one question.
Yes.
Personally. You had mentioned that some of the ADA are going to be outside, or special transit services are outside of the boundaries. Do you happen to know how many individuals that will impact?
No, I really don't. Our boundaries, the microtransit boundaries are very similar to, actually, we've expanded our service zones overall. There are some instances where the areas that we use or are currently providing for ADA paratransit services are going to be excluded, but I think there are 2 instances, they're very small zones. But in general, we have increased our service zones.
Thank you,
By a lot.
that concludes 6. We're going to move on to number 7 regarding the fall 2024 Central Texas Public Transportation Summit.
Okay, so a few updates because we didn't really get to discuss this in May, but our previous partner, Reinvent Healthy, provided the great funding for the past summits, has kind of decided that they really only fund startup projects. So now that we've done this 2 times, once in 2019 for Bell County, and then last year for the whole region, this year we're going to do it for the region again. They won't be funding us. We'll be using our own funding, our annual tech stop funding that we get to fund our activities and board and coordination for regional transit. So we're just we have an updated agenda in your packet, which just we changed the facilitators column because Reinvent Healthy was doing facilitation as well in the past. So now it'll be ourselves in partnership with United Way. We'll be handling all the leading of the discussion and the various activities. So really most everything stayed the same from the last time you saw this because I sent it out late May, early June, gave about a week for feedback from the group. So yeah, the only difference is that facilitation and then a few more names for potential speakers for panels. In the morning, we are going to be having a panel on rural and non-emergency medical transportation. We're changing focus. We really want it to be about the areas outside of the micro-transit zones and see, discuss projects that can benefit them. So we're planning on having Tony come and be a part of that panel, and then some of our NEMT providers like Ride State, Lone Star Medical Transportation. He's supposed to be our speaker last week. And then, hopefully George to talk a little bit about the Veteran Bus Pass program, and then possibly a entity like Hill Country Community Action, maybe Bell County Indigent Healthcare, because we had Ebony last year on the panel, maybe talk about some of their needs in rural Bell County. And then after that, we're doing the same, speed solutioning activities and a presentation of the hop on microtransit. That's where we're going to discuss how it's benefited people who do live in those urban areas, because we'll talk about the dates here and try and get feedback from you all on what dates are good. But we obviously delayed this to have a few months after microtransit was implemented, so we can actually get a few. Yeah, from the attendees and how it's working. If there are any new issues that came up that we need to address. But after that, in the afternoon, there's the last panel, and this one's a volunteer programs and workforce transportation. So some ideas that we had there was Faith in Action Georgetown, which is a previous speaker, but it doesn't have to be the Georgetown area. It could be one of the other Faith in Action community areas. And Tesla has their workforce transportation for Killeen. As far as we know, that's still going, but I'll reach out and see if anybody was interested in participating. If not, then we'll have to replace them with a different out-of-region transportation program for employees. Then Moveability, we saw earlier, then Faith Community Health. So a good 2 volunteer programs and then 2 employee transportation programs. So that's really the whole agenda. So and this isn't an action item. You're just going to use this item to receive feedback. So it's open for everybody here to give us any ideas. The location last year was Coppers Cove Civic Center, which we think worked pretty well. It was I think about $3,900 for supplies and the reservation of the space and the food and everything together. So we'll still be able to cover all of that. But we chose Coppers Cove because it's close to the middle of the region. We didn't want it to just be Bell County people, so we wanted passes and San Sab and then Middles and Lyon. And that was as close to the middle of the region as we get. But some other alternative, in COG offices and D8 or D9, where we have those tables. We're the very first year for Bell County's summit in 2019, they did Summersville Retreat Conference Center. So that's an option as well. And as far as dates, we have So just a few options to put out there. October 29th, which is I believe a Tuesday. I wrote it down here. That's a Tuesday. November 6th, a Wednesday. November 14th, Thursday. And all three of those are for our next RTAG meeting. So yeah, just open for any ideas on the location, if we want to keep it the same, or if these dates, any of these work for you guys, and then maybe any suggestions for speakers or even changes to the agenda that you see here.
I have a question.
Yes.
On, with the transition of the hub and having some new providers come into the rural components of our COG region, would we be inviting the new rural areas or new transit providers to come in and speak about how that's going to be operationalized? San Saba, Hamilton, and what's the other two there?
Mills County, Hamilton, San Saba, and they're going to projected to go to 3 different transit
Right,
providers.
because we're just keeping 4 for the COG.
Yeah, so it's Bell County, Bell County, Core, Yale, Lem Passes, and mine.
And now, when is that going to go into operation? Like the separation is official? Isn't that early next year?
Yeah, the latest is, I believe, March 1st is the target date.
Yeah, so we hadn't initially planned on having any of those providers come in, just because whenever this takes place, everybody's still technically part of
With
the
part of the Bell Metro Transit, right?
Yeah, you think, I mean, is that something we should potentially look at? I don't know if that'd be, what do you think here?
I think if we have definitive answers by then, as far as which county goes where, maybe it would be worth bringing up maybe stuff directly, right? So it's-
Does we don't officially know like who they might?
There's still conversations. I think it's a 90% certainty. It's my but I believe also Tony, who's going to be president, potentially agree there.
Okay. Maybe that could also be part of the hot presentation.
As an update to
Yeah.
district realignment or.
And then one critical component that was discussed, I don't know whether it was, I don't remember, I've been to so many meetings that, whether it was here or in other meetings, but there was mention of availability of access van pool to address local rural needs, i.e. like if Hill Country got a van and they could have somebody volunteer to pick up seniors within a 5-mile radius and things like that. Would that be whether the hub or whatever is still involved, would that be something that we could look at? Because really what it does, if you look at all the work we did back in 2019 and stuff, a lot of those things that we talked about are now happening today.
Correct.
So how do I plant that seed to say that is another good component that we're not accessing in our rural communities, that if you're able to get a driver to volunteer,
Right.
and you're an agency that can support that, how would that look? What would that look like?
So then the best approach is to have a TMA, Transit Management Association. That's really who you would want to be involved to structure something like that. We are having conversations with the hobbits, at least the industrial park, to launch something similar in the future. The industrial park partners are definitely interested in that right now. So that's a possibility, at least for that area. But yeah, it's a good idea, but I think TMAs would be probably want to invite or involve to help us kind of bridge that.
But do you think that putting it now would then help solidify future decisions on how to move forward with that?
I don't know. This is not, this is a good venue for something like that.
Okay.
This is more of a conversation between us and the potential partners interested in maybe entering some kind of an ILA.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if it's something I might ask Tony about on the panel, this van pools, but that might potentially be addressed as part of the NEMT stuff. So maybe if there's something to talk about then, or you just bring up, we are definitely going to implement this in the future.
Exactly, we're having conversations. Yeah, exactly. This could be just an additional.
Yeah, here's what we need to do that. That maybe,
But as far as NEMT, just so we are partnered with two NEMT brokers that we're going to continue to partner with. So we will provide NEMT transportation within the zones that we're going to be operating. But there are NEMT providers in the region, so in some instances, those riders or clients are outside of the service zones, that the brokers are partnering with other NEMT transportation providers in the region for Medicaid transportation.
Yeah. So as far as the location, does anybody feel like it'd be better to hold it here, maybe with the other 3 counties in the western part of our region moving away early 25? Is it good to keep it, you think, at the Civic Center we had it last year? Any issues with that?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what you said, because, the region's still what it is, at least for the end of the year, is still usually that central location.
Okay, so great. As far as the dates, October 29th, I guess just as far as what works for availability for you, or if there's any issues. I know since we want you on the panel, George, if any of those dates are bad for you, make it. So it's most important for you.
I know, every day I'm having my calendar like this. I'll have to look at my things. Sometimes I host things here in this building, but I don't have to be here. So
Okay.
I'll look and I'll send you an email as far as what works best for you, all those dates. How much lead time do we have enough time to even consider October 29th earlier? Everything's.
Yeah, the last Tuesday in the month. I think so, because we don't have to apply for funding anymore. We don't have to do an application, all that. We're just basically expending funds from our line item. So that cuts out a lot of time. It's really just, and we have some supplies left over too. So it's really just that, and then the food's not a big issue, preserving the space itself.
That just stay the speakers balanced.
Yeah. That would probably be the biggest hurdle.
Dominique, do those dates work with you that way? Do we know at this point?
No, we haven't asked them yet, but we will after this and see what works for them.
So November 14th, United Way is sponsoring a training here at the club with Inform. So the 14th would probably not be.
Okay.
We're going to be having a conference here in our building. So for United Way.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. At least the 29th or 6th, but definitely there are more dates in there just to figure that we're good. But yeah, I'd say very late October like that because microtransit will start September 3rd. So I think by then that's about 2 full months of it being operational. So yeah, we'll look at that 29th and the 6th to see if that's good for United Way. And then we'll also discuss and really see whenever we reach out to speakers and see if that becomes an issue that has to get pushed a little if we're having trouble getting Tesla speaker and then we have to maybe get a different entity altogether. And speaking of the speakers, were there any ideas or suggestions for changes or maybe organization that I don't have on the agenda that maybe you think should be a part of it? If not, we can keep it like this. That's good. Yeah. All right. And that's it for this one.
All right, well, let's move on to agenda item number 8 regarding the quarterly report from the Hill Country Transit District.
Yes, thank you. So second quarter 24 kind of went as expected. As you can see, there are 2 areas we did not meet our own goals, and that's fixed our ridership. It has been, I don't think we've met our goal for a very long time. That's one of the reasons why we're converting to microtransit and road calls. Our current fleet is aged well beyond their life expectancy, which we, as I mentioned, we have replaced with microtransit fleet. So that we expect that to improve a lot. But yeah, all the other areas, goals have been met or exceeded. Any questions or comments?
Any questions?
Next, agenda item number 9, regarding the discussion of any new unmet transportation needs for special populations.
All right, if you know of any unmet needs or gaps or anything for listed groups, low income, disabled, unemployed, seniors, children, veterans, this is your chance to kind of discuss that, bring that up. Or if not, you can always email me, maybe for an issue or somebody to bring even for public input in the future meeting. So any new needs?
Not any new needs, but that might be an upcoming need with the special transit going away for some of our
Yes.
population in those outlier areas.
And how much of like a Belton or Temple that, you know, as far as the city limits, isn't covered? Is a significant
So
portion?
Belton is mostly covered. There's just outlying areas to the west, kind of close to where our office is.
Oh, okay.
But that's never been covered to begin with ADA. So I think all of the current ADA or STS coverage is included in Belton. Temple, actually, we've expanded Temple, especially Westport. It's actually covered more than we're currently covering. I think there's a sliver in Colleen to the west part that's not going to be covered, like transit currently is with ADA, because of how the fixed routes are structured. And as you know, by FDA regulations, we have a fixed route in place. We have to provide complimentary paratransit 3/4 of a mile on the side. So I think there's one area that's currently covered by Route 5. I think it's southwest. It's not going to be covered with electric. Code, we've actually expanded the coverage area, and I think Heights is probably going to stay close.
Are there plans to procure more microtransit vehicles in the future? Because I'm just thinking maybe if you have more vehicles, you're able to expand the boundaries.
Well, it's going to be based on available funding and allocations. So, you know, procuring vehicles is one thing, but is there funding available for those vehicles? Pay for those for revenue others.
Yeah.
But as we see the expansion, obviously bring it to the board and have those conversations on the cities. And that's something to consider future funding allocations.
Sure. As if we see potential uptick in ridership, does that revenue help with expansion?
Yes. So, you know, with part of the federal allocations is ridership. Obviously, that makes effect a year or two later or in the future. But yeah, that definitely helps a lot. Show FTA, and that's something to consider as far as funding allocations. The system's successful, the ridership exists. Unfortunately, as of right now, we will not be able to support above ridership for that reason. It's not being funded by FTA. Right? It's not hard to use it. So it's kind of a standalone contract system, right?
But once they leave the base to code,
But those rides
will count.
will count. As soon as they leave the base and they connect into the regional system, that ride counts towards but while we're on the topic of funding, we just learned that the city of Parker Heights decided not to fund public transportation. That was a resolution passed by the city council on Thursday night. So we've learned that as well. So this affects 25 funding. So Parker Heights will be covered for the rest of the year, and then potentially maybe some public transit services.
Effective when?
I'm sorry.
Effective when?
Well, right now they're funded for the rest of the year, but starting January, we just don't know. That was the resolution of the city council. That's conversations.
So what happens to our clients that live in Hartford that we launched onto there, they would not be there?
We will provide service, like I said, right now until December 31st. Beyond that, I really don't know.
So essentially that zone could go away.
Potentially. As well as the two original commuter stops that currently in place.
We'll still have to stop along the commuter route from Copper's Cove to Temple to Belton.
So are you talking about for the original commuter?
Right, and it's you're going to have to stop in Harker Heights as they go, or?
So if Harker Heights public transit is discontinued, that those two stops, one in MoDOT and one in HCTD will no longer be served.
Can I ask, for these special populations, and I'm thinking specifically about individuals with disabilities, if I don't know what the options are for people with disabilities, where would I go to find those options?
I mean, the available transportation
Yeah.
options.
I can give you kind of a triage when you get calls. So most, there's some plans if you're on a Medicare, plan that offers transportation. There's some paid for by private contractors. So you might have some minimum rights to medical. If you're on Medicaid, medical transportation is not affected here. They're just a vendor. So they would find other vendors if you're on a Medicaid provider route. Where it becomes more problematic is once those, like we have dialysis patients that once they use their funds, and we don't have many options for that. But we've always had a problem with not having enough viable providers. But if they're Medicaid for medical appointments and stuff, it's just an issue of wait time, because there's still a provider issue no matter what the situation is in our region. But that's been the biggest thing. But we're always trying to make sure people are aware of their benefits to the Medicare plan. They choose if they want to have some rights.
If I just wanted to pay out of pocket and I didn't go through a waiver or something like that with Medicaid,
It's the pricing, it depends on the type. Like this one company charges $100, because they pick you up in a wheelchair and they have a specialized per one-way trip. And so it's just, especially those that require things. On average, if you're providing show volume, they're discounting me anywhere from 45 to 50 for one-way trip within a 20-mile radius. Does that make sense? But that's because I'm giving them more clients that they can pick up. But usually if it's a one-on-one on your own, you're looking anywhere from Am I pretty accurate on that? So.
Any other comments, concerns, questions?
Derek, I'm curious, if Harper Heights goes away and that transfer station behind the Walmart?
Yeah, MoDOT Drive?
Yes.
Yeah, that would no longer be served.
Then if someone's being picked up from the west side of Belton and they have to commute to Temple for a job, how does that work then?
Well, if they're in Belton and they just.
Or Killeen, west side of Killeen, I'm sorry.
Well, the original commuter will continue to operate. It would not stop at those.
Okay.
Which stops I mentioned. But yeah, otherwise, it wouldn't affect anything else.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Do you have how much ridership is that we're doing in that area by chance?
In Harker Heights?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in 23, we did just under 60,000. That's combined fixed route ridership and SDS ridership. We projected for 25 with the changes with the increase with microtransit. We projected Parker Heights to be somewhere around 65,000. Right. Just to give you an idea.
Is this an economic decision or will it be?
It was, I think it was the council made the decision based on the bill. I guess it's not that. That was the decision.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to number 10, staff update.
All right. So just as far as the administration for annual funding, so we did get our contract for FY25, so that's September 1st through August 31st of next year. That's $40,000. So the contract's totally approved and stuff, and that's of course what we're going to use to fund the summit. And as always, quarterly milestone progress reports and documentation of all our coordination activities and meetings are all being submitted, in a timely manner. Our Title VI plan update was completed and approved by TxDOT. And so we sent that documentation in. That was just for the COGS and all, was approved by the executive committee. As far as the State Public Transportation Advisory Committee, so they had meetings back in April 18th and July 25th. And the Public Transportation Division Director of TxDOT can report at all these. And just a quick summation of some of the points he made in those two meetings. So discretionary grant awards and formula allocations. So TxDOT applied to the FTA for a bus facilities grant. So they're going to spend about $33.5 million to replace 154 transit vehicles across the state, as well as construct 4 new facilities for those vehicles. And the state received 41 applications for their coordinated call for projects, and that's their annual discretionary grant programs that open up. So that's about 80 million total. And in June, they completed formula allocations for FY25 to all the transit districts, as well as the Section 5311 funds. In July, they also made the award for all those competitive applications for the coordinated call, as well as the Section 5310 and planning grants. So those are ones that are going to open up again in FY25. Let's see. Lastly, for federal and state updates. So just a few grant programs on here. We have Federal Rail Administration, Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant Program, and Restoration Enhancement Grant Program. First one's just grants for local governments, grade separation, track relocation, but just projects to improve mobility and connectivity within cities. The Restoration Enhancement Grant Program is one they need to look for in the future for the HOP, because I know we discussed passenger rail in the future. So that one for next year, I think is something we should look at. That's all intercity passenger rail projects. And then lastly is Reconnecting Communities Pilot Program. That one's just removal of transportation infrastructure that serves as a barrier for mobility or economic development. So it's work on limited access highways and principal arterial facilities, as well as transit lines. And then just an update on the statewide transit plan. So the statewide transit multimodal plan, at the end of last year, they collected about a little over 2,000 surveys, did 20 pop-up events, basically to collect feedback on stakeholders as far as transit behavior and patterns and gaps and needs. And for this year, they kicked off what they call 6 emphasis area working groups. That was done this spring. They're currently rolling out a public awareness campaign for this plan. And for fall of this year, they are planning an outreach campaign. And this plan is expected to be developed in 2025. And then that's, we're going to have somebody speak from the state on that at one of our future meetings, kind of get an idea of what the plan looks like, and if there's an action plan with strategies, goals, and objectives in it, and kind of where we tie in on a local level to that. And that is it for the staff update.
Going on to number 11, member updates and discussion. Any member comments, questions, concerns? No? Okay. Moving on to number 12, to set the meeting date for Thursday, November 21st, 2024 at 9:30.
Yeah, is there any issue with that meeting date? Because I know that's right before. Yeah, it's right before Thanksgiving, I think the Thursday before.
It's the week before.
Yeah, it's 1 week before
That should be,
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanksgiving week? Yeah, forget it.
Just in case anyone was leaving early or something. Okay.
Sounds good. That is it.
All right.
Adjourn. Thank y'all.